All right, man. Break
Hello,
it
ladies.
down to me.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Montez from itsmontez.com, and you are now watching an episode with Mr. 5th the DJ. I don't know if you've gone to the other channel on LTDMG Promotions and watched it over there. It's a channel where Corey Baker is the CEO of. I just pretty much help do the footwork. I pretty much make that stuff happen. But if you watch some of his videos over there on that channel, you can definitely get more in tune on who he is. But instead of me taking up all the time trying to explain to you who he is and what he does, if you've already read the title, this is what we're going to be talking about. Mr. 5th, please introduce yourself.
How you doing? I am Mr. 5th the DJ, Midwest Regional Promoter, Midwest Vertigo Street Team Coordinator, Midwest Vertigo DJ, ATL Vertigo Youth. I pretty much kind of get artists to help artists get to that level so they can make the next step to get to the next level. So I'm kind of like the step in between, and in between that step, and then stepping beyond. So I pretty much like to deal with artists, try to help them some footing underneath them. And I'm also, I forgot to mention, a head of artist to DJ relations for Vertigo. That being said, it's pretty much artist preparation. You know, it's a numerous things, the proper way to email, getting press kits together, and so on and so forth. But I guess we can get into that a little bit later. But in a nonchalant, it's pretty much myself in a nutshell. I'm also a promoter as well, and a industry DJ A&R. So
Now, as far as what the title reads, it's we're talking about wisdom for the up and coming artist. Let's go ahead and just jump into like one of the main things. If you're an up and coming artist, or if you're up and coming anyone, because this can apply to anyone. What's some of the main things someone might need to do to make sure that they got their stuff aligned, going in the right direction?
well, I think first of all, is a plan. We have a lot of artists that jump in the game and they have no plan. They just, they may be inspired by another particular artist they've heard on a video shoot or whatever the case may be, or the show. And, they may have a buddy that has a studio, like, hey, let's go ahead and do a record, maybe put it on YouTube. That's really not a good plan. Your plan is going to consist of your support team. It's also going to consist of a budget. You don't necessarily have to have a manager, but you're going to have a lot of these little small things done. Getting your music encoded, understanding the proper way to email, learning promotion, or getting involved with a promoter or a good promoter, getting a pool of DJs. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of artists do, your best friend is your promoters and your DJs. Now, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying the bulk of your contacts in your phone should be DJs. And I think a lot of artists, they suffer from that. And when it comes down to networking or really trying to get your music out abroad, once you had your little spurt in your local city, now you kind of left not knowing what to do. So planning is a good way of doing it. And you also have to pension in budget, because a lot of artists don't even factor in the monetary part of it. Yes, you can make money in the music business, but initially, to get in the music business, it is a budget that's going to be required, and it varies depending on structure, and it varies depending on how far you want to do, what type of genre you have, et cetera, per se. So planning is the biggest thing, and I see it's the biggest mistake, and it's routinely. It's over and over and over, and I always call the carriage before the horse. And 90% of the artists that come in, or maybe even higher than that, have no plan and don't even factor the budget thing in until they already have a song and it's got some movement and they want to move it somewhere else, and people start throwing numbers at them and they like, oh no, what? That's not what it's supposed to be. Well, so that right there, kind of like in a nutshell, it's planning, man. It's planning, and it's a big nemesis for a lot of young artists.
Like a lot of people say, write it down, get it all down on paper, and go on through it. So, like, do we go back to the old idea of the brainstorm? Should we draw a web? Should it be a list made? Like, for you, when it comes in saying, all right, planning the musical career, what would you say first would be one of the first things that you should try to achieve? Should it be making sure that you have of your songs lined up? Should it be that you have preparation on the, I guess, the biography, the websites? Should we take care of the websites? Which thing would you suggest someone to take care of very firstly?
Well, I think, the very first thing is become legal. If you're really going to be into it, brand your name, trademark your name. Um, that way, when you start to do your visuals and you start to do your promotion campaign, that's out of the way. I think the second thing is to have a good product. You want to have a good song, a good record. I think three is make sure that you're not dealing with, and I'm not taking anything away from guys that went to school for engineering and stuff like that, but there's no way you're going to go to school and master that right away. Um, Find you a good producer, so you can get original music. Then copyright your music so you can own it. You know what I mean? You and the producer alike. Get your paperwork together. Every step, every phase that you go through is all paperwork endorsed, and it's really standard and mandatory. Um, you can't even get signed without your paperwork being in order. They just label just blow you on off because there's thousands of other artists that may have their paperwork in order, and you may have that hot record and everything's buzzing, get to a certain point, and then you know you have to bring up the legal side, and you don't have those things set in place. So I think one of the biggest things is as you go and as you add to your repertoire, there's a legal process or a documented process that goes along with that. So, everybody that's a part of the song, you got the producer, you may, have a little record company or whatever, and everybody's all signed into that. Obviously, your copyright information, and then as that builds, you start your EPK. Now, the thing about the EPK is when you start your EPK and you've never ever been in the music business, you pretty much only can talk about your inspirations and your affiliations. As your journey goes, you want to constantly update your EPK. So your EPK is never standard. I'm updating my EPK every 3 months, sometimes every month, because of the affiliations and the network of people who I deal with. So I'm not immune to none of that, even myself. But I think some of those little bitty things right there at the very beginning is a serious showstopper, and it's all the time. And then some artists don't want to, they don't want to spend the money for a producer. They go to SoundClick and do all these things, and you end up getting a particular production from a producer that's used by maybe 200 or 300 more artists out here. And now your music's not original because I've heard it several times. I mean, the guy sent me some product from St. Louis, and then I heard another artist on that same production from Cincinnati, and I was like, "Oh, that's a problem," because both of them are under lease contracts, but nobody really took the step to get the authenticated rights, the exclusive rights to the record. Yes, you own part of that record, but that producer still owns the exclusive rights. So I think the biggest thing is an artist, get you several producers and, pay them, you know what I mean? Or put an agreement together. So if something does happen, everybody's taken care of. Do it from the very beginning instead of waiting to the end and trying to track that producer down and going through all the headaches. So there's a paperwork process, a mandatory paperwork process, an authentication process every step of the way. And
Now,
it's
I like all the information that you're giving out there. I want to kind of focus on, again, because education is not free. A lot of times they'll tell you to read the book. But I guess for some of the artists right now, are there anywhere that some artists might be able to connect with someone? I mean, sure, social media is so powerful. Maybe you might say connect on social media. That's pretty easy, right? But is there somewhere that artists can connect to get this knowledge to help them take them to that first step? Because a lot of times I feel like we have to bump and fall and find out on an accident or on mistake or not even wanting to find out like this. You know what I mean? But Is there somewhere
Right.
that artists might be able to go to get this information? And if
Yes,
so, can you share it, please?
yes, it is. It's real simple. You can go to your library. It's called the Book on the Music Business, and they have several volumes. They update them probably now, probably every 6 to 8 months, or 6 months to a year. It's the Book on the Music Business, and it pretty much gives you a guideline on everything that you need to know. There are some information on that you can Google on YouTube that can give you simulated contracts, artist producer contracts, labeled artist contracts, where you can kind of get an idea. Now, if you don't understand that verbiage, that legal verbiage, you can get you an entertainment lawyer, and they can kind of help you go through that process, or kind of explain some things better to you. But yeah, you can literally go to the library. There's the book on the music business, and it's right there. I've grabbed it probably 10 years ago just to refresh myself on some new things. But now, since you have a lot of streaming that's involved, uh, which is tied into the to a larger media base, and you have multiple streaming services. iStream is one. Title. There are new ways and there are new layers of information that an artist can just sit there and just read that particular information. It's all right there in black and white.
I like the fact that it's easy. It's not. I wouldn't say that it's easy to learn, but the idea to go to the library to go get it to pick it up. Well, what do you have to say about laziness, right? Maybe the person, it's like, man, I don't have the time, or I don't know if you call that lazy, but maybe how can I find the time to get that learning to go? Would you say that person doesn't even want to be an artist, or you know?
Yeah, it's a passion. So if that's something you really want to do, and a lot of younger people, they're hungry, they got a lot of energy, and sometimes they can just like, man, I ain't got to worry about that now, or I'll get somebody else to handle it. Um, I don't necessarily recommend an artist overloading himself, but I do recommend an artist taking that time out to read it or do research, because it's almost idiotic to go into any type of business without doing any type of research. Uh, you have to do research. And even if they don't get the book on the music business, you can Google and you can go on YouTube, and they can give you different layers. You can see different layers of information that can help artists all the way down to distribution. Um, and the thing about it is uh, dedicating your time if you want to be that artist you want to be, or you have your team. We talked about planning earlier. So part of planning is also planning your team. So you get a team together and you allocate this individual for this individual for that, this individual for this, and at the end of the month or whatever, your team comes up and say, hey, so and so, okay, we got all this done, but look, I got the book. We need to take care of this. We need to do this. It says it right here. Everybody's on agreement. You take care of that. You take those baby steps. You learn that,
Now,
and
which
then
one? Which one?
as you get out in the field and dealing with artists this season, they can kind of tell you the same thing. A lot of it's really not a secret, but
Which
if you
which
don't have
which
those in place, or if an artist is really being lazy, they're going to stumble, or they're going to run into the roadblocks that I was telling you earlier, where you can almost get to the end of the rope. You're getting ready to possibly sit down with an A&R, at an executive office, and all of a sudden a red flag pops up, and they say, "Oh, you don't even have your paperwork together. We're trying to pull you up on the database, and we're trying to do this. It's not showing up. You don't have any numbers on your copyrights. You don't have any music coded. All these things can really be a career stopper, because one thing about A&Rs and label people, they have very short patience. They just, you know, they may hang there for a second, but they're more spoiled than the artist. They're actually a little bit more lazy. And I'm not throwing flares or anything, because they have a heavy workload, but they rather for the artist to have all that stuff done before it gets to them, to make their job easier if they want to follow pursuit or present you on that next step process when it comes to being signed by somebody else. And when I say sign, that means an outside entity investing into you, whichever how much monetary aspect that can be. So I think another thing
Now,
is yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to. I got to ask this question because again, like, which one would you say is more important to go after? The manager first? Would you go for the producer first? I mean, if you already got like ideal records are going, like, which one would you go for first?
Well, I would go ahead and lock my producers down first. Whatever agreement you can have with a producer, you know he's going to be there, he or she, or the multiple producers that's going to be there for you. I would go ahead and get that out the way first because, and get your paperwork together with them first because that clears all the legality of the issues when it goes down the road. You don't have to worry about backtracking. When you do get a manager, you can offer that paperwork to him so he can have copies of that for his records and also your records. I just think, you know, yes, having a manager, but I think putting the managers a little bit ahead of the ball game without having those producers in place. You know what I mean? I think they're really, really, really important. That way you don't have to worry about going on YouTube, SoundClick, or, you know, doing all that type of crazy stuff. You're starting fresh from the beginning.
Now, when it comes to the beginning and you're actually putting yourself inside that process, and you've got the now you've got your producers, and you're going out and you're saying, all right, collaboration. You're looking to collaborate with somebody. Band mix. That's a place where people get together and their bands and they collaborate and they start doing things that way. It's a good place to meet. But
Yes.
otherwise, do you have any advice to where possibly again the internet's so powerful? But I'm just saying, like, is there another place to where you might be able to suggest people to go meet?
Yeah, we at Vertigo we do multiple mixers generally every year. This year we only did one. We already have the date set for right after South by Southwest in Dallas. I think it's on the 18th, March 18th of 2018. Um, that is a perfect spot. One of the perfect spots. South by Southwest alike down in Austin. Vertigo is also down there as well. You also have coast to coast DJs. And reason why I say that because what happens is you end up running into artists that's already been through what they've been through. They may already have records already on the radio station. They may already be promoted one state, two states, or they may already be working or have a buzz in 7, 8 cities. So those artists are ahead of you. So that's a good time to say, hey, man, let's get together. I'm really ready to work just as effective as you are. Let's do a song together. Let's work. And to believe it or not, a lot of times artists that's up here are really kind of skeptical of artists that's a little lower than them or just not coming out for the sake of doing a song with an artist that really doesn't have a buzz and they don't work the record or promote the record like what they're doing. So when you do that, you pretty much walking yourself into a 50-50 agreement. Because, you know, let's say Lil Ronnie or Mr. Go Get It. These guys are they're in Texas. They're out here working. They're hitting strip clubs. They're hitting the streets. They're hitting radio stations. You know, they're really out here and they have a movement behind them. And they get Jimmy the Cricket out of uh, Boise, Idaho. He wants to do a record with him, but he'll never leave Boise, Idaho. Um, he just now got into it. Yeah, he does have the budget, but he doesn't have the clear cut vision of what it really all takes to really help move or endorse that record. And that right there gets drawn into criticism a lot by the artist that's already kind of up. He wants to know, what are you doing? He's going to, or his management team's going to want to know, what's your history? We're going to go to EPK. Um, have you been active on shows? What are your followers like? Or what are your engagements like? Have you did any tours? Do you have a DJ? Do you have mixtapes? All these type of things are going to come into question. And what I've seen over the years, I've seen that bridge get better, and then I've seen some cases where it gets worse, where a lot of independent artists are like, "Oh man, he thinks he's too good." It's really not that. Until you've gone through what they've gone through to get where they're at, you have a better understanding. Because going from 0 to 100 and everything in between, There's a lot of factors that's got to take in place or have to take place. You have to have a lot of people outside of your team really talking for you or in support of you, to kind of make some of those things happen. So once again, that's all part of planning, and we can take that back to the very beginning of the conversation that we had. It's all part of putting some of those steps together. If you know or have an idea that you're going to be doing a record with somebody, your plan for that budget, your plan for that particular audience, and your plan for that particular vision should already have an idea of what that should look like before you get to that person, because they're going to see what you have, just like a label or anybody else. They want to know, what do you have and what do you and your team's going to bring to the table, not necessarily to match my team, but at least give me some security that you're going to work as hard as we do, no matter what your budget level is.
I think that's pretty powerful. Is trying to get someone to understand, hey, what do you bring to the table? And it baffles me quite often. I have people that say, hey, Montez, I want to get this going on. I say, hey, what do you know? Pretty much, what are you about? Oh, I'm not about too much, but I think that sometimes it's the smaller things that people can bring to the table. Being able to execute something quickly when you're asked, when get it done.
Yep.
If you're looking for someone to come towards your plate and be able to eat off the same table as you, what are some attributes that you would like for someone to bring towards you to help you excel, if you even need that? What are some things that you might need or looking
Well,
for?
right there's. I mean, I'll take all. I never reject anybody that's really serious about this, but I think, um, yeah, that's really a good question. I think one is, if you're gonna bring something to me, and I had a couple guys hit me up today, actually two. One guy, Killer D from Houston, Texas, and there's another gentleman. I think his name's Mark from Columbus, Ohio. I might be Martez or something, or Marco, from Columbus, Ohio. They say, hey, you in Atlanta, can you play my music? Um, what I do now, which is a little differently from when I was doing industry mixers, yeah, I will play your music, and everybody knows that. But I don't like doing that without all the pieces, and it's like a standard. So I pretty much kind of hit them back and always tell them, what's your plan? Um, give me your plan, and I'll tell you what I can do and what I do. You know, if we're connected, get together, where I go, you go. So there's a lot of visual promotional antics I need, whereas t-shirts, flyers, banners, etc. for my street team. We have several DJs linked in my street team. There are also some associated DJs who I network here in Atlanta, Florida, and various states throughout the Southeast, or all over the country, as far as that most alike. Um, they have to, not only, I ain't saying I got to be impressed, but when they step to me, I need to see, uh, flyers, banners, EPK, good records with a good mix, and a good master finished product, that's coded, that's possibly already on, with Google Play, which already set up for distribution, whether it be Pandora or all those type of deals. There's packages that you can go online and get, and they will encompass all those together. And says, hey, Mr. 5th, I'm already here, there. I'm already set up for distribution. I'm ready. I got a budget, small budget here. I'm ready to start breaking this record and start working this record. So myself, along with some other people, we'll kind of dialogue that record. Um, we'll get together, and we'll kind of see what's the best market for that particular record, and we'll see if they have a fan base and where the potential fan base, where we can lead them to, or expand that, pitch that back to them, draft up an agreement, and then we'll go to work. So that's one of the biggest things that will catch my eyesight, or really will catch me, and not just me, my wife as well. I've been with her for 23 years, so we kind of think alike. She's more really raw dog, straight and direct. She expects when you come up and you speak to us, say, hey, I want you to help me with my music. She's going to have her hand out. She want to see a pre-press on your merchandise, or something, what you or your team, or what do you have. A lot of artists may have all the things I said except the merchandise. It's so much that goes with it. Sometimes you miss pieces out, and it can happen. You know what I mean? But that right there helps me because, here I am now working with artists. It's already kind of made a little indentation. Kind of like JC down in Tampa, Florida. He has a fan base. He has a little following. He's made minimum indentation. And when he comes to me, I know he has all these things on play. I'm looking at everything on piece of paper, and I'm like, okay. So if somebody asks me whether it's an A&R or whoever or a DJ, whatever, like, hey man, who is that guy? You got any links on him? Yeah, boom, I got it right here. Boom. I send him that link, and it's going to tell him everything about that particular artist. And it makes my job easier for me because I don't have to dig up a bunch of stuff. I just got that link on him that he sent me. It's in my base. I boom, copy that link, send it to whoever, and that other segment of my job is done, which I am a promoter, I'm a networker, and I'm a relinquisher, an extension for independent artists to get to the next level. So when I'm approached by a particular artist, after I've done some soliciting or somebody just randomly, hey, Fifth, who you working with down there? Let's hear who you working with. I start sending off my links or send them a mixtape or something like that, which I'm really not big on mixtapes with all the laws or the piracy laws. Um, a lot of artists don't really know how to cover that. So I haven't really done a whole lot of mixtapes. I'm really not really big on them. Artists are still are. Mixtapes are for fans. They're not for DJs. Uh, Emails, MP3 are for DJs because we want to see what your mix is like. Zip files, I definitely don't recommend because they compress the music and they just, they make the music smaller. Um,
Oh wow, you
another,
said you don't recommend zip files. It's crazy. Most of the time, people will send content in zip files, and it's so weird to me. Some people will ask that way. So what's this again now?
well, the thing with zip files, the whole purpose of a zip file is when you have mass information, you're trying to get to one individual at one time. The problem with that is you see a lot of people using mixtape links, or they may have a whole mixtape. I want you to hear everything on my mixtape, and they'll send you a zip file, and it's compressed and it's doused. So you have a series of probably photos or cover arts in a zip file, and you may have maybe 12 to 16 MP3 files. In order for you to get all that one shot easy, once again easy, um, you send a zip file over to that DJ or whoever. Um, I recommend people don't do that to me because it really diminishes the music. Um, we know from back in the day, we were analog. Then we went from wave, and wave is one of the richest, depending on how well it's mixed and mastered and put together. Is one of the warmest sounds. But but right now everything we deal with doesn't really take a wave format because a wave format is a bigger format. It's a bigger file. It's even hard to send wave through email sometimes when you send them multiple ones. So what we do, we mix it down into an MP3 file. Um, the thing about the problems with that sometimes is depending on the master and the mix, uh, that MP3 kilobyte mix is not up to industry standards, which should be 320. Um, so that right there, once again, it kind of hurts the artist too. Depending on your engineer, who you get at the very beginning, as a part of your planning process, is going to help you out on that. He's going to know you need to be industry standard, mixed and mastered at 320, so you don't have that problem. But that right there is kind of like in a nutshell, Montez. And I can honestly say that I got some emails to check now, and probably from this show we're going to do, and I know I'm going to see some mixes that's not industry standard, and it's going to hurt them, and you can gauge that a lot of time. Put a Future record on, put a Jeezy or Gotti record on. Those guys are going to make sure that they have the biggest mass sound possible when they're sending it out to these clubs and to these DJs. Why? Because they don't want their sound to be overshadowed by anything else. They want the best and the biggest sound. And a lot of artists probably don't really look at it that way. They just like, I'm gonna go holler at my boy, get it mixed and mastered, not really understanding who's behind that. Uh, there's more than a verbiage of a mix, more of a verbiage than the master. It's who's mixing it, what equipment they on, and are they aware, and can they bring the best out of your record with that equipment? So it's always the man behind the equipment, not the equipment itself. A lot of people kind of get that misconstrued too. They say, hey, I'm working on Pro Tools HD, blah blah blah, SSL, blah 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 blah. But what is your craft as an engineer or a master house on that? You know what I mean? Do you have records that's industry standard that you put out before? You know what I mean? Or are you a producer, or have you mixed up this, been on mixtapes and this had some notoriety, or the sound is right? It doesn't take long. So DJs, we want to see that. I like to see it on the grid. Uh, Even before I even play it, I like to see it when it comes up. If it comes up thin, I already know how it's going to go. A lot of times I'll probably reject it. I'll send it back, say, hey, I'm not even going to try to play it, especially if I'm in a big club. I did do too much adjusting and all that. You really don't have time for that. So it's best to put your foot forward first. And once again, that goes back into planning when we talked about that earlier, finding out who's going to be mixing your music, make sure it's mastered properly, and, being industry standard, of course. So
I think something real powerful is being able to take criticism, being able to take it from someone else. And I know that through the process, and especially when we're growing up and we're going down a lane, finding out what it is that we need to do, we get this criticism, and some of us don't know how to handle it. Um, can you give some advice? I mean, sure, like we might be like, no, they're a loser or whatever, can't deal with them, whatever. But can you give some kind of advice to maybe help someone a little more with constructive criticism when they receive it? How can they better, I guess, deal with it?
well, I mean, I'll use myself as a tool. I've been criticized, even by family members. Um, like, hey, you're not really this and that. You probably shouldn't be doing music or being a part of music. Um, for some people, emotionally, it can be a just a killer. Um, but I think being humble is one of the best keys. Um, if somebody tells you, or if I tell you, I say, um, I like what you're doing, but I don't like how you presented that record. The production may not be where it needs to be. The actual lyrics may not be in tune to what's now, or in tune to the future, or it may sound symbolic of something else I've already heard, which you may hear a lot of that, or you may hear people criticize people on mumble rap, um, or you may criticize them on creativity or originality or presentability. And some people don't handle that well. Um, the best thing, once again, is be humble. If somebody tells you that they don't like what you're doing, it should be instant motivation. Uh, Once again, study the business that you're into. Study your craft, perfect your craft. So if you just now starting out and somebody say, "Oh man, that's whack," you ain't got to take it with a grain of salt and sit back and listen and say, if you want to be that artist or have that record that's, you got hundreds of people jamming inside of a club or outside in the public area, then go to that public area, or the next time you at a club, and sit back and listen to what that artist is doing and how the people are responding, because you may be talking to a small group of people instead of a mass group of people. A lot of it's verbiage and what you say, what I mean, as far as connectability. So if you're not connecting with anybody, yeah, you're going to get shut down quick. Some people only connect to people in their neighborhoods and their record goes nowhere. Some people connect to people of all races, genders, and colors, and they sell millions of records. So it all depends on your market and your target of what you want to do and where you want to go with it. But being criticized, I think, really emboldens. It should embolden an artist, and it really should really make them feel like they need to remotivate themselves, or they may feel like, well, I got my team and this and that, and they may have to switch teams, or they may have a producer that they thought was whatever. They might switch producers if they're not writing their lyrics there, and they can't put a good hook or a good song together. They may say, man, I'm gonna need to get me a writer to come in here and help me put some hot songs together. um, they help me out. You know, if somebody's criticizing you and you're getting constant criticism, you can't just take one. But you constantly getting it like, yeah, it's all right, but maybe you ought to try something else. That right there is like, okay, let me go back and let me try something else. And you just keep going back. You know, artists that's out here in the industry, Future, Gotti, and all those guys, they leak stuff through Vertigo amongst other websites. And once again, I'm gonna take you to Vertigo. Vertigo is like a pre-launch before you actually invest in that record, and it's the response directly back from the DJ. So you can find that by having private listening parties, putting your product on Vertigo or some other sites, having your personal listening parties, having group listening parties, having listening parties at the club, and a lot of that kind of help you get a good indication of what the people really want. You know what I mean? You want to take that criticism because that's going to determine where you're going to invest your money in and what the extension of your promotion on that particular record is going to be. Because you may think, oh, this song over here called Jumping Over Here is going to be this that joint. But you send some people a few other songs, and they be like, nah, this is your song right here. You know what I mean? You have to listen to the people. If the people talk, you got to listen to them because that's your fan base. That's who you're making music for. So if you're being criticized by them, they criticize everybody. Katy Perry, T.I., Migos, everybody gets criticized. You know, you take it with a grain of salt and you come back harder.
That's pretty powerful right there. I want to know what is it that if you're looking for a platform to use, I know that Vertigo DJ is a good one, but let's talk more specifics on what you use. When we're talking about doing business within the music, what are you using? Facebook more often? Are you using Twitter? Is this through email? I mean, like, what is it that you normally are doing, and how are people normally connecting with you? Like, what's for the artist? Where might they go to get a better connection or to connect with such people like yourself?
Actually, believe it or not, I get a lot of hits on my Mr. 5th the DJ page, my Mr. 5th the DJ Muscle mixtape, my Mr. 5th the DJ Atlanta page is on Facebook. I get a lot of artists linking me music. Some artists that know me professionally or on a personal basis, shall I say, they have my email. They send it to me directly, and I can elaborate. My email is Mr. 5th the DJ.com, MR period the numeral 5 TH the DJ at gmail.com. So a lot of artists, they do that. They tag me on Instagram, they tag me on Twitter, but I get a lot of independent artist action, believe it or not, on Facebook, way more than what I ever would probably even think of. I also are part of a lot of DJ pools, coast to coast DJs, Nerve DJs, MP3 pools, ATL Top 20. I know I'm probably missing several other ones. I get a lot through them, and also, obviously Vertigo, because I'm a Vertigo DJ. What I do is I try to take now, so my workload's got a little bit heavier. I try to take maybe about 2 or 3 hours every couple weeks, and I start listening to the links and some of the emails. Unless I'm doing a business agreement with that particular artist, I start going over music. Every now and then, if I'm on my phone.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but Humble Housewife and Mom Simmons stopped in. She said hello, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. A lot of times, what I'll do is I'll take a couple links. I'll listen to them. For example, there's a gentleman from North Carolina, really hot song. I think the song's called "From Carolina to the A." And I don't think he realized how good that record it was. And I was like, man, this song is hot. He sent me the email. A lot of artists sometimes don't know what they have, and they'll use me, like myself, to give them, just give them a professional opinion on that record. I'm going to look at a couple things, without seeing videos. I'm going to look, like I said before, I'm going to look at my Serato grid. I'm going to analyze the mix. I'm going to obviously listen to the record. I'm going to see if it hooks me, if it has that feel, if it has that drive feel. Um, and then I'm gonna start analyzing the vocals and the content inside that record. Um, and it takes me about 45 seconds. That's atypical. Most A&Rs, they're gonna give you about 35 to 45 seconds, and that's it. But actually, if I go past that, that's a good thing. And I did, and I like this guy's song, and it was amazing. So that do happen from time to time. I'm not saying it's rare. I get links. I can go on my Facebook right now. I got links going up and down there. I can choose. Some of them I heard before. Some of them I haven't. Um, the ones I do have links to, sometimes they take me through too much. And I'm gonna kind of cut to the chase. The quickest path to get the music to a particular individual is, especially DJs, is MP3. Some DJs may like links that, really into mixtapes and stuff like that. Me is, I want to hear your best thing forward or your best two forward. Give me those. Um, that way, I'm not being clouded by a bunch of other stuff. Now, if I don't like them and I don't respond back, that's one thing. Then you can send me two more. Okay, tell me if you like these, and then I might hit on something. And prime example, this artist Bruce Wave out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I say Cincinnati because I know these guys personally. He sent me a record. I don't remember what the record was. He sent me about three or four of them. Uh, the last record he sent me was the record I liked. He had no game plan, no promotion, Anthonyx for it at all. He was real big into that one song, and I listened to it, and I was like, "What is this?" And I went down to two, three, four, and I almost gave up after four. Got to five, listened to that, and I said, "Okay, this song says shake that ass." Okay, popped it up. The mix popped up good. I said, "Oh, this has got a better mix than everything else." And I played it. And I was like, "Oh, it's a twerk song." Come to find out, that song actually ended up being a good tool for him to get recognition. The dancers were dancing off of it. He got his first, elements of notoriety, which kind of catapulted him and his manager to go off and do other things. So sometimes when artists will send a song, they may have other songs, but most of the time they don't know what song to pick. You know, artists are very bad at picking singles. Um, some of them, they may say, "Oh, I got this one," but a lot of times they can't pick it, and it's really not their fault because if they're spending a lot of time, making a record, and they're not out in the venues and the clubs, and they're not out here and what's going on, they don't know what's going to make that thing pop and what's going to make the crowd move. So when I have time, and if I'm not under contract with them, I'll have time. I give it a listen. I'm like, yeah, this right here, we can go with this. You know what I mean? That song has what I call movement, and movement meaning that it has potential. You know what I mean? And I can already see I can take this particular song, play it in multiple different markets, and people just keep right on dancing. You know what I mean? Or they keep right on jugging or whatever. It may be new. A lot of times what happens is people end up coming up to the DJ booth. Who is this right here? When they do that, they get right on their social media page, try to find that artist or find that link. So yeah, in a nutshell,
That's a pretty good.
Facebook.
That's a pretty good walkthrough. So we literally watched them pull out the phone right there and plug it in.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said recently this week, this guy from North Carolina, never seen him, never heard of him at day one. Uh, you know, and believe it or not, and let me correct myself. I actually saw his link. I was on the North Carolina hip hop artist page, which I do. I go out of state and I get on their page and I start looking at the links, and any mini mighty mo. I pick an artist, I pick his link, and it'll send me to YouTube or whatever, and I hear it. I'll be like, oh, and I hit that guy's link, and I was like, man, right off the bat, I knew it was a good record. I told him honestly. I said, I think you got a hit. You know what I mean? I think he got a club hit, and obviously he appreciated the comeback and he emailed me the record and everything, and I just told him to stay in touch when he wants to get to that next process or go to those next levels. So yeah, I do it. I've had some time on my hand here as of late, so I can do a lot of that. Me and my wife, where we can sit back together, we go hand in hand on who's doing what as to what. But it's been a different road here as of late, especially down here in Atlanta. Uh, they have artists down here by the thousands that's really trying to break out in this music. Rilo, Little Baby are some of the new ones that's actually breaking out of Atlanta right now. They have huge followings, and you'll probably be hearing about those guys here in a little bit. Did some limited work with Mr. Dave on Rilo and some flash promo. We're looking to work with those guys here in the future. But yeah, man, I'm not saying I'm a fan of links. I just like to do it on my own time. I really prefer, and I think a lot of DJs prefer emails. Just send an email, say, hey, if you got time, can you check my song out? Blase, blase. A lot of times when I hold my phone, I just go ahead and listen to it real quick. Then I run it back to them. Okay, what's your plan? And once again, I can always say that because, I put myself in part of a plan also. But I always like to put that back on the artist to let me know what level they're at and where they're at, and sometimes I get what I want to hear. Sometimes I don't, you know what I mean? But that's just the way the game goes right now.
I'm looking at this man. What is it? What is it that really might cause the artist to do something to put themselves in that limelight? Maybe it's not just make the right record. Maybe it's I mean, is it that they have to spend? I mean, right, money? Is it that they have to have money to put them behind themselves, or is it possible to still be like a Justin Bieber, or if you want to, or like a Nelly, if you want to, or which again, these people still did work hard, but it almost seems in some kind of way, if you really wanted it bad enough in the older days, it would happen for you. It seems like now, being with the internet, it's got so polluted to where everyone and anyone's trying to do something. So, like, how could someone really stand apart, right? Of course, professionalism. Of course, making sure you got that nice EPK or mechanical press kit, having these things, sure, having these nice things, but how can one stand out of the group, if you will?
Uh, Once again, that's going to go back to your team at the very beginning, part of your planning process, building your team, uh, having that presence. Um, as an artist, there's no way that you can do this on your own. It just can't happen. I've heard artists say, "I'm doing this by myself." You can't. You have to have a team. You have to have a loyal, set team that's going to work with you through that process from the beginning to the end. And if you don't have that, you're in trouble. The internet only can go so far. What I always say is digital things can't walk the steps that you walk. So, in other words, I can put this phone down and actually do more damage than I can on the internet right now. I can say I'm finna go over here on Old National and just holler at all my DJs, all my club owners, just network this shit, bring my camera people out, and everything just go robotically crazy. Social media can't do that. You know what I mean? Only me and my team can do that. I call my team up, I call my road manager, call my personal manager up, talk to them about what I want to do, what we're going to be doing. They're going to interject and throw their spin on it. Blase, blase. We set a date, time, when it's going to happen. Call up all the people that needs to be there, who's going to be affiliated with, and it's down set how to go. We don't play around. We get right into it. Excuse me. We get right into it. So you're going to have your team along with yourself put things in play and plan things in play before you can move forward. So that's going to set you apart. It's going to set you apart as far as having that visual content where some of the other artists is not doing that. They may have you know, a DJ playing their record, whatever the case may be, but they don't have anybody representing them at all. And you know, it's almost like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Whatever's on a T-shirt, which I have on a plain T-shirt today, but my hat speaks 1,000 words. Nobody don't have to know me from Adam. I can walk into a store anyway, and they won't say, I think he's a DJ. They're gonna know I'm a DJ because they can see it right there on my hat. You know what I mean? That just connected me with whoever I run into, whether it's say, sir, I need somebody to DJ or whatever, or hey man, do you deal with artists, whatever. I just created that spark. I just created that connectability between me and that opposing person that doesn't know me from Adam, simply by wearing something and presenting myself. So a lot of times it's easier than what a lot of people think. You want to bring the attention to you sometimes, and sometimes the internet and social media cannot do that. It just can't do it. Uh, you know, it's summertime. You do have people that's work that's on their phones, but a lot of times you got to get out and get that face to face communication and that face to face network ability.
You know, it's almost like I've heard you can go to school and learn how to fix a car, but until you actually get out there and go fix that car, you have no idea. So, uh, I guess it's safe to say then, direct marketing is what we would call this, right? Direct marketing.
Yes.
So if direct marketing seems to be more of the appeal, let's try to talk. I want to know about business cards. What are your? Because I mean that's something physical you can give away.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, "Oh no, I'm gonna keep on giving out all my business cards." You know what I mean? Like I'm losing money. But then I've also heard I've had Raymond Lowe's. He goes on Power Trip on Twitter. He says you really can't have enough business cards or pass out enough because you might lay this business card down somewhere, but then I gave you two of them, so you might have two of them in your pocket. So, like, what is your thoughts on that business card aspect? Because I go back to this again. Um, the other day I was out doing a photo shoot, and I heard from the photographer. He says you not having a business card is a big ideal, and then I started thinking to myself, like, because the gentleman said, well, everything's been moved, updated to social media. This is my business card. So that he says that, I'm kind of like, well, then that kind of makes direct marketing obsolete. Then, what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah. You know what? I mean, once again, it's not saying an unprofessional way because you know your digital presence, you know your digital EPK, which you know I've gave you various social media sites on myself. That's my what I call a digital EPK. Yeah, that is digital. But the thing about it is, let's say, um, like myself, I know tons of people, but I have a billboard in my office. I also have a market board, and when I get up every day, it's a physical check off list that I check. You don't do that. Most people don't do that on their phones. They'll grab their phones and they'll start emailing and doing everything else. They're not checking off. Okay, I need to call this person. Uh, you know, all the stuff you actually write down, physically have to write down. You have to do a combination of both. The digital presence, yes, that's the easy part. But let me ask you this: how are you going to build that? How are you going to be able to expand um, that digital presence without having a direct presence? You know, the more direct you are, for example, um, I can go out this week, this Saturday, this Friday. I'm going to network with probably 40 to 50 artists at the Rock the Mic tour. That's going to be 40 more contacts I had that I didn't have, and social media had nothing to do with it. Social media won't kick into play until after I made those direct contacts, correct? So, yes, you know, you can say that, but that hand to hand and that direct marketing is supreme. Some people live and die by social media. If you have a big enough following that can transcend you, yeah, you could probably just get away with that. Uh, Greg Street from B103 here in Atlanta, he has a big following on Facebook and all social media sites, and he's right down here in the streets grinding direct, just like me. You can walk up to him just like anybody else, um, and network with him. That's direct marketing with a major radio station DJ in Atlanta. Um, so I kind of, you know, don't quite buy that. If people buy into that, you're cutting everything you're doing short. You're just cutting yourself short. You're sitting back behind a computer, not really worried about it, and then you want to, you may expect 20,000 of your followers, or let's say 2% of your followers, to be at this particular location. Yes, they may follow you digitally, but will they actually come out to you physically? And a lot of times, by not having that direct interaction or that direct affiliation via whatever the case may be, whether it's showcase, outside venue, or block party, whatever, they may not come. They see it there like, yeah, he's cool. I like his music or whatever he's doing, but I really don't know him. You know what I mean? I really don't know who Mr. 5th is. So until I meet him, man, maybe when I meet him, maybe I'll come out. So there's another step of putting the carriage in front of the horse. You may have all these other things in place, then you'll hit that bump and you'll be like, oh man, ain't nobody's coming out. I got all these followers and everybody's saying, they liking my stuff, but they're not coming out. Biggest part is your followers could be 500 miles away. Have you located all the people here directly that can come and support you before you build it in other places? That's direct marketing. You're not going to be able to do that unless you deal with people direct. And yes, it's footwork. And yes, it requires some time. But, I remember when Luda first, he was telling a story about when he first came out, he spent a lot of time in Alabama, dealing directly with people face to face. And this was right at the beginning stage of the internet. And he became effective very quickly, very quickly. He put out some real good music and established a good following. He was very consistent and very persistent, and he's done very well. I've even heard some engineers, some master houses. They've spoke very highly of Luda. He's a real professional, and if you cut yourself short by thinking you don't have to do something because something else is easier, that's setting yourself short. You have to cover all areas, as much areas as possible. If you think you missed something, go back and get it. And if it involves direct marketing, then you're going to get your team on the ground and get it done. You know what I mean? That's just the only way it's gonna. That's the only way it's gonna help, especially if you're coming from ground zero. You know what I mean? Because even social media, um, may not only gonna may or may not help you to an extent, unless you have an associate affiliate like your Drake or something like a big name. But if you're coming from nowhere, nobody knows you from nowhere, or you just localize in your city, yeah, you got to do a lot more direct marketing, a lot more, and not in just your city, but in other states and other areas as well. Other than that, you're gonna be stuck in that bubble. That's why
I like the idea of you just keep on reiterating a team. You need a team. No man or woman is an island. You need to be and have a team. But it's almost I remember it perfectly so much. I guess because I kind of walked through it when creating our band. This guy would play this. This guy, no, this isn't working. This isn't working. How do you know, or would you say someone really ever knows that they have the right team?
Well, you're gonna go through some headaches. It's gonna happen. You're gonna go through some people that's gonna start at the beginning. They're gonna fall off. They're gonna expect things to happen right away. That happens with a lot of new young starter artists. And you bring other people on, and you eventually get people that's a little bit more educated, a little bit more seasoned, especially for the ones that don't really study their craft, don't really study what they're getting into. Because some people have friends that wants to be managers that really don't know how to be a manager. You have some people say I'm gonna be a promoter, but don't really know how to promote, and you have a lot of frustration, a lot of infighting, and so you're gonna have some headaches at the beginning. That's just something to expect. But after you go through those trials and tribulations, then you kind of go through that. Then your team is starting to be a little bit more solid. You start getting on the same page. and you start seeing a movement, you start seeing a level of effectiveness. I think a lot of people need to understand when you say team, everybody has to play a part and play an eccentric role. Everybody can't be the artist. Everybody can't be the DJ. Everybody can't be the host. Everybody can't be the producer. You know, everybody has to have their role. And if everybody plays their role and do their part, you can have a very effective team. So I always tell people, be the best at what you do. Stay in your lane. Uh, if you're not a person that's, you know, a big radio head and a big promoter, then don't travel in that lane. You know what I mean? If you're a producer and you're trying to do all these other things, just be good at what you do, because what's going to happen is you're going to kind of stumble on some of your other teammates. And you're going to start some infighting. Now you can, you know, interject some suggestions or some affiliates that you may have gotten somewhere else and say, hey, so and so, you handling radio and promotion. Here's somebody I just got in contact with. They say they can help us. Get with them. You know what I mean? And vice versa. You know what I mean? That way everything's running in phase. And everybody has to be on the same page. And I think um, meeting up often is good. So if you do have some inconsistencies or some disagreements, because they're going to happen, you can get all that stuff cleared out the way. And when I say disagreements, I don't mean like, oh, everybody's got to be yelling one another, because it's going to happen. You're going to have disagreements. It's like, okay, we got an issue with this. Let's write this down and see if we can make it better. Some people may think one thing works opposed to the other. Okay, well, if you think this way works and this way works, let's try both and see what happens. You know what I mean? If that way works, then we roll with that way. You know, if that way doesn't work, then let's try this way or try another way. I'm finna run in the house because my battery is finna die. So just kind of bear with me here. I got to go get me a charger. But I think the biggest things that a lot of people deal with is that when you do say team and you are incorporating your team, what they don't do is they don't, everybody doesn't stay or do their part. Everybody's trying to do everything else. You have some people that's trying to do more than what they're supposed to. Issues, and those are one of the things you don't want to have is issues. You don't want to have issues. You want to try to keep everybody on the same page, and you want to try to keep everybody obviously happy. Let's see here, trying to charge this bad boy here. It's not registering.
It's all right. I think it's right. You gotta have a even. Everyone needs to be on the same accord. And I do think that there will be quarrels, but it's whenever quarrel or whatever. I think you know what I think. What it is maybe people fascinate the idea of friendship and business. A lot of people fantasize with, oh, it's my friend and this and that. And how do you, can you kind of like speak on that a little bit? Because I think that within looking into this as a whole, getting people to understand that there is no friends in business really so much to speak. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, well, once again, you have people that will pull their friends in to be their manager, and a lot of times that's a big mistake, especially if they haven't studied that process or know what it takes, to be a manager, and they end up walking themselves into a big dark room and catching themselves in a situation where they don't know what they're doing. And instead of making it public to everybody else, they carry this title around and they're saying they're this and that. And, you start having arguments and disagreements and things are not getting done. If once again, I'm going to go back, study what you're getting into. If you're going to be a manager, learn from the best, study from the best, study your craft. If that's what you want to be as a manager, you can't come out the gate being a great manager. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to study some analytics, study some strategies that works best for, at the time, could be your friend or if even if that doesn't work, you being an artist, nothing personal with your friend, but go get you a manager. You know what I mean? Get you a seasoned manager or somebody that's in your entertainment business that can help you get some of the things done or make you aware of some of the things to get done. And if you don't do that, uh, you're gonna have some problems. And
I
I've
guess
seen that.
sometimes it might be like one of those smiling in your face backstabbers, right? I feel like a lot of times it's not that the friend's trying to pull the wool over your eyes or something like that, but there's other advancements that's going to break out and be at peak. You know, there's going to be other. How can I mean? Because it needs to be a mutual thing, and sometimes our friends or our business partners don't speed up quick enough. Sometimes it might say there's a back door, and someone finds the back door, kicks it open, and then when they weren't there, they're like, "Hey, I wasn't included." You know, this kind of thing. Not that you're stepping on their feet, not that they're stepping on your toe. And I know we spoke about this before, but how do you really deal with the fact that when it's not the fact that I'm better than you, it's not any of these things. It's almost like when you deal with someone that's coming into your state of mind, and they're maybe I don't want to say on your level, but maybe like uh, don't do business like you do. How can you kind of like whenever that does happen, whenever you do take that friend and switch from there, how can you kind of make that smooth transition? How does that work?
Um, well, one way to do it is simply just you being an artist. Let's say you the artist, and there's some things your manager is not up to speed on. You don't think he's moving fast enough. And once again, we're talking about somebody that's really don't know how to be a manager. So, uh, team wise, that person who has that manager's title is going to have to be a whole lot more open and more receptive to the rest of the team because once again, he doesn't know. Uh, he may know a few things he may heard from somebody else, but the team could be getting information that he needs to be aware of. And if he has to be receptive to that. And I think everybody going in the door has to be receptive of information that I am. I mean, there may be some things going on I don't know anything about. My teammate tell me, say, hey, Fifth, this was going on. I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to send you an email. I mean, we all do that. There's no way I can sit here and be on top of everything. They just can't be done. So that's why I have a team. You know what I mean? I have a street promoting team that's in various different states and various different cities. They keep channels open for me or the rest of the team. So we want to make a move or we need to make a move with a particular artist to do any type of directive or show or whatever, we have those lanes. So I think the person that's being the manager or the artist itself or some of the other team members, everybody has to be open. The egos you have to put aside. If the egos are in the way, you're going to have problems. And I think that's one of the biggest things people go through is just the egos. Some egos may drive people because they have more money, or they may be living a little bit better. They may put their ego above yours just because of their standard or where they're at in life, even including the team. So they may feel that they may have a bigger say-so. That is clearly not the case. And that's really a poison to the team. And if that's who you have in your team, you really need to get them out of there because you just can't have that. But sometimes I've seen people with a lot of money blow a lot of money and project goes nowhere. So just because you have a lot of money or you may have this person or know this person, whatever, that is not necessarily going to give you a pass to just supersede or go over and beyond what everybody else is doing or what everybody else is thinking. So, I mean, to add to that, it just can't happen. Really, it can't.
I think it's true. Ego is something that we all have. It's something that I guess sometimes it will take over the person whenever they're going in, and it might be hard not to get that big football head, if you will, not to let it like air yourself up. Because I guess with inside the growth and things like that, this is naturally what's going to happen. And us being human beings, this is just where sometimes we might find ourselves. I'm curious. I'm curious. What do you do? What does it take for you to really be turned off by an artist? Like, what is it? Is it the ego? Is it that they're unprofessional? Is it what is the main thing that you're just like, nah, I can't deal with this anymore? Where you'll be like, I'm shutting it off. I don't want it. What's your total turn off?
Well. That you said it. Ego is one. That's a big turn off. Um, Not being receptive, not listening. Um, what you call Hollywood. In other words, they may have a level of fame or a level of notoriety from a particular area or a particular region, and they're 100 miles or several hundred miles away, and they feel that they should get that exact same treatment and that exact same reception. And you're trying to tell them what they need to do, and they're just clearly not listening. You know what I mean? And that right there, I back off immediately. I disassociate myself with the artist. Another ways is what I call backdooring. If we do some business and then that artist figure, well, I don't need Fifth now. I'm gonna just go to the same people who I dealt with before. And next thing you know, oh, you're down there and I'm not there, and you kind of just did on your own. Well, yeah, that's a turn off too, because if I'm bringing you through a process and I'm working you through my process through the people I know, let me deal with that because I have that relationship. Now, if you want to do that on your own, then you didn't need me in the first place. So those are some real major turnoffs for me. There's several artists I've already done that to already. Um, where they figure like, well, I'll use you till I get to this particular level. Then I don't need you no more, and I'm just going about my business. Not realizing that there's so many stages and steps, and there's so many people that that you're gonna eventually run into me again. You be like, oh man, I just screwed him over. There go Mr. 5th over there. Dang. You know what I mean? So bad news travels real fast in this business. Good news do too, but bad news travels real fast.
Yeah. We're going on an hour here. I know that you're a busy man. I know that you got a lot of stuff going on. Go ahead, catch us up on what's going on. I'm sure you got to rock the mic. Just catch us up on what's going on in your life right now. What things are going on?
Well, I'm looking. Rock the mic is this Friday, July the 28th. It's in at the Jinx in Savannah, Georgia. We're gonna have a lot of heavy hitters there. I'm the roster of artists that I'm looking at in my email is pretty vast. I haven't heard the music yet from them. I'm going to be listening to that today. I'll be giving you a follow up. We'll do a follow up interview on that. I'm really looking to be impressed. I know Mr. Go Get It's flying in from Dallas. I know he brings a lot to the table. I think there's some artists coming down from Cincinnati, Ohio, Rax. He brings a lot of energy to the table, among some others. So I'm really to be, looking to be overwhelmed. I really am as this tour starts to build, and I'm expecting to be overwhelmed. I had that same thing when I was in Radcliffe. I think I'm gonna go through the exact same thing here again. I know there's a lot of Florida artists and Georgia and the Carolina artists I think is going to be there as well. So I'm really kind of excited. You know what I mean? It's like a drug for me. I just love doing it, and I just can't wait till Friday.
Mr. 5th, we can expect to have you back on the show again, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you took this interview and got a lot of advice out of it. If you're an up-and-coming artist, whether or not you're just a person trying to make it in this world, this here was for you. A lot of this stuff is pretty much like practical thinking. Prepare yourself. Get a plan. There's a lineup. Don't put the horse in front of the cart kind of situation, And this doesn't just apply in the music world, like I said. But you are now watching itsmontez.com, and we just got finished with the interview with Mr. 5th the DJ. I hope that you all have enjoyed the rest of your day, your afternoon, your night, your morning, wherever you're at. Hope you've enjoyed the film. Mr. 5th, thank you so much for being on.
I'm happy to be here anytime. You guys have a great day. Look forward to talking to you again, and we'll see you in Savannah. July the 28th. Rock the mic for Mr. 5th the DJ.
Ladies and gentlemen, itsmontez.com.